No, it's completely true.
Yeah, absolutely.
TY has to report to special school 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, at least.
Want to phrase it like that?
No, maybe not.
Yeah, and TY also is one of those guys that also we just know as like what we love so much about TY is actually his builds, even though like everything else is also great. And special can certainly be that very same way. There's also a very interesting discussion around TVZ leading up to IEM, during IEM, like the whole mech versus bio argument and the idea of Korean Terrans versus the foreigner Terrans, which special is like, he truly is a special case. Like, which one is he?
Yeah, he's that somewhat in between. What's so scary about special usually when he goes to events is that he's been in Korea hiding and no one knows how he's going to play, and he comes out with a whole new playstyle. But obviously in this event he has been in Korea, and they've got Koreans in this event too, which can maybe cause some problems for his preparation. It's kind of interesting because even TVZ, what do you pick, is sort of a hot topic, right? Because Cyril in an interview, for example, said, I don't know how you beat mech, and yet which Terran has played mech in TVZ lately? They keep playing bio, so there must be something that the Terrans feel they want to play bio for.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some like very detailed nuance thing, but I'm just going to go with they don't want to play versus Swarm hosts. Like, I can beat it, but I don't want to. Like,
does anyone want to play versus
it doesn't
Swarm?
sound like a fun time. They want to be considerate to the tournament as well and not have hour-long games. Like, thank you very much.
They want to give us the epic TVZ of old, which is kind of what we've been seeing, expecting a lot of just bio versus Lingbane meter in this match, or at the very least Lingbane heavy, because Dark is that kind of guy who will play very aggressive, fast styles that can move around the map quickly, counter-attacking and all of that good stuff. As from the start here, Special will start up a second gas, so no fast 3cc. Will be looking for at least a starboard early game.
And Triton is one of those maps where I do anticipate the bio play just because of the way you can attack from that third base, but you know, these other maps that we don't necessarily expect, and then we still see it. You know, again, the weird choice of bio versus mech. But that's what I would expect from Special. We do have some 3cc builds off this map, actually. I mean, this is the map that Seoul did that. I know I'm going back a little ways, but Seoul did that pretty sick push, you know, extreme greed, and it actually worked out. But then it's like, it's dark, you know, like this guy's scary in the early game, he'll cheese you all in you. He's scary in the mid game, he'll just go for a big old bust, and he's scary in the late game as well. He's just generally very scary.
Well, Dark's had this attitude towards foreign players as well, right, where he's just like, oh, you're not worth my time, I'm just going to bust you and kill you now. And in that regard, he is very scary to play against, and that's maybe why you get this starport up early here as Special. We've seen a lot of Cloak Banshee players from Special in other matchups, and of course, Hellion Banshee is a tried and tested way to open in TVZ as well. Let's see what comes off the starport as that's just finished up, and for the moment, nothing at all. A Viking to start us.
Okay, so Tech Lab after that Marine, maybe?
He actually did go pretty fast third CC off of double gas, right? So that's a little bit unique in itself. It's not like one gas 3cc, but then he slowed down production elsewhere, maybe even just mined 2 workers on each gas, and still got the third pretty quick. So actually, it is just pretty defensive into bio.
Yeah, and you know, it might look very odd to Dark, who can actually scout the front of Special's wall, and you usually see a third CC there. Basically 9 times out of 10, unless it's a fast third CC, and then it does go into the main. So maybe expecting the Viking, if this is what he's seen so far, but there it is, to push that away. Dark not type of Zerg apparently to get that Overlord speed. Yeah, I mean, you still want to try and get as much information as possible here. Even seeing if the factory is still making Hellions can be a very important scout, but he doesn't even see that.
He does not, and as he starts up a few roaches here, Dark already just pretty safe, right? You know, it's that sort of time where, you know, if this was a Hellbat attack or so, maybe you get something done. 6 roaches maybe can move across the map in this scenario as well. There's no Banshee, etc. So if he feels as though he can get across without Hellions running by, maybe there's some hope for him there. I mean, it's not like he needs to do damage with these. He is just drawing right now quite nicely. And Special is just going into that Liberator as his second starport unit.
So he's going to swap his barracks off the Tech Lab and then the factory onto it, I suppose?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it's...
He made a mistake. That's all right. That happens.
Yeah, he's just, maybe he was just playing with the idea of what he wanted to do next. He's actually going to go for another Liberator, which is very interesting, because that's a lot of gas investment early. Like one Liberator, usually I'm like, okay, that makes sense, as this is just going to be a few roaches showing up. Like I mentioned, they can go across the map, but actually, all the Hellions here, a couple Marines joined with the Reaper, and they're going to be able to push this back.
I mean, the faster tank that he was thinking about getting would have certainly helped against this, but then realizing it really wasn't that committed, and it really wasn't. He's going to go for just the, primarily a Hellion defense. The Liberator wants to get on the action, but this is going to be the dangerous part of using your Hellions against the Roaches. They might eventually take it down, but then what if they actually do have Lings behind it? And just a couple of Lings, a handful of Lings, suddenly made that look just a little bit scarier, but ultimately not so much. He's going to go ahead and pull the SCVs. Again, nothing that Dark can't run away from, right? Like, those Liberators are trying so hard to be helpful, but it really is just the Hellions slowly taking out those Roaches. Dark gets a little bit of panic set in, gets 4 SCVs, takes out some Hellions and future Hellbats out of the equation, messes special build-up just a little bit with that whole factory thing, and gets a bit of a scout.
Yeah, and I even think the 2 Liberators is somewhat of a response as well, right? Just a bit more safety, a bit more firepower in case this is continued unit production, so it is definitely throwing Special away from where he wants to be. But overall, Special still has a nice fast 1-1, a little bit faster than the Zerg. Dark gonna play Roach upgrades, which it's just not what you see a lot of now, and he might just go +1 missiles and then switch to melee after missile +1. But if he sticks to missiles, that's going to be very interesting. But even early on like this, because usually if you go Roaches, you're going for like a Roach 1-1 timing initially, or it's against mech, and this is just a bit of a unique way of playing against Bio that kind of was a thing in the past, but not so much anymore.
I mean, that actually sums it up pretty perfectly. It was that it was a thing, and then I feel like it was just so obvious at one point.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, he's going Roaches, I guess.
Yeah, just going to build tanks. I'm just going to pull my SCVs if he all-ins me.
Yeah, exactly. But then to bring it back, especially on that map Triton, like, talk about the Bio push, it is a little bit different, or a lot different, when you're not considering lane baneling, but rather actual investment into Roaches. So he doesn't see the Roaches, the continuous Roach production, he didn't see the Roach Warren Jiggly, but he did see the Roaches, and I think Dark, to me, has always been a Roach player, like, more so than anything else. And I wonder if Special, who's been on that Korean ladder, who, like, studies with the Koreans, would at all anticipate this. He's still going to do the drop. These Liberators have been failing so far in the harassment, but they're now trying to pull something out of position. Scan reveals those Roaches. Doesn't get much creep spread. You
see this many Roaches, and I think especially you just know you got to be a little bit careful here. This Liberator gets Corrosive Bile, is going to try and dodge it, but it does go down. The issue is, right, if Special realizes these Roaches are here, this is a big Roach burst, right? There's no follow-up, there's some lings being made, but there's no Baneling Nest, etc. Yeah, he's got 72 drones, but he's going to attack. Special's already been building tanks from the early game, and he will just keep on building tanks, and it comes down to a bit of positioning. I do think maybe you have to pull the SCVs here to survive, but if you do, it can be pretty good.
I don't know about the start. The tank is going to be something he can't Corrosive Bile, but Special trying to take the fight ahead of his tank so that it's not just instantly pounced upon. That's a good start, but that can only happen for so long. Ling's looking to maybe go into the natural, even actually a wraparound on those Marines or on top of the tanks would not be bad. Take away the fire from the incoming Roach numbers. The third tank just popped out. Where is he going to place that? Because that'll often be the most important thing about this. The Roaches come in, the Lings do come from behind. They're not actually going to take the tank fire, but now they're confusing everything as Special gets overwhelmed.
Absolutely wiped out, and as the Roach Ravager keeps pushing through, there's still even Zerglings in front. New Siege Tank will not last very long at all, and that is game as Dark picks up the first map. And that's a scenario where maybe Special even need to go a bit more overboard on the defense.
Yeah.
A couple extra bunkers, etc., because Dark is kind of all in on this, right? Yes, you've got 72 drones, but transitioning away if you're committing to the attack is pretty slow. You're on Roaches, there's no Baneling speed for a long time, so once you get built up a bit more as a Terran, the Zerg can get a bit stuck trying to defend themselves.
It is really awful when you see that just a little bit late, right? You don't see it with a drop that's 30 seconds earlier, so you get a couple of drops in, you get some time bot. You're also thinking ahead of where I want to position my tanks. It sucks when it's like, oh, Roaches. Okay, give me a second here. Oh, like that second was not enough. And it was honestly a bit bold of Special to see that oncoming Roach push and then have his tank out there. You know, usually a lot of those defenses against the 1-1 push on whatever map I can think of, it was so much about like the tank in the mineral line, right? Like as far back as possible. And then a tank on the high ground. And then a tank on the natural. Like so far away from being pounced upon or Corrosive Bile that they end up being the only promising anchor to the defense. But he just had it up in the front.
Yeah, just a very convincing game from Dark, and in a way it's kind of what you expect, right? If he's not just going to play Ling Bane, lots of counterattacks, then a big Roach attack at one certain timing. And that's the sort of time at which maybe Special would have preferred to have a Banshee out, because those Banshees would be so good at stopping that kind of stuff as well. And that's where the Liberators aren't as great going into the game.
That is a very good point, and they couldn't even do anything as they already died trying to pass. All right, game number 2, in the bottom left of Eternal Empire, it is the Red Zerg Dark.
In the upper right, hailing from Mexico, our blue Terran is SpeCial. Some glasses micro.
Yeah, I need some micro SCVs.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's that does take a little bit of the wind out of the sails, doesn't it? Though, like we're kind of hyping up SpeCial a little bit. He just got a pretty clean victory in his previous series, and then it's like Dark didn't look so hot. Oh, okay, Dark just won one. Roach pushed him and won. Yeah. Oh, all right then.
I think this is the most convincing game Dark has had so far, because even on the off-stream series against Dia, there was moments where it's like, oh my god, Dark's about to die, and then Dia like sieges his Prism under 8 queens, which you pointed out, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, he should have died, but he didn't, right? But this was from the start. Where was the danger for Dark? There was none at all. He controlled the entire pacing of the game. Even those first 6 roaches, it's like, well, they're not going to do much. And then, how long did it take to clean those up?
Yeah, and the length of time to clean stuff up is often like the most important thing about it. But then also, again, making SpeCial react, offsetting his build a bit, very important. And speaking of offsetting a build, Dark does go for not just a pool, but also a gas first here, and then into that hatchery. So SpeCial is going to be very thankful he sends an SCV out to scout this.
Yeah, SCV scout confirm it's not hatchery first, can at least give you the heads up on the Reaper as to whether you want to go across the map still or not. Eternal is the longer rush distance in the map pool, so it's not an a common map to do something as aggressive as this. There's Roachron coming down. We'll see what the SCV does, because this is such an early SCV scout and such an early Roachron. You can go into the main base here of the SCV and actually scout it.
Yeah, it's one of those weird things where like, oh no, okay, well shoot.
Well, it's one of those weird things because the meta is to kind of not scout. You see the hatch first and you're just like, oh sorry, not hatch first, but you see the pool first because of the hatchery time, and you're just like, oh okay, pool first, back away. But you don't usually send the SCV all the way in, because usually it's not that fast a Roachron behind it, and even if it is some aggression, you're just like, okay, it could be aggression, but not necessarily this build exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Either the Reaper has to pull back because it knows what's happening, or the SCV is like, yeah, I know what's happening, and again, pulls back. But there's always that chance that you actually send it into that mineral line in the main base, and it's just like, the third player's like, oh, whoops-a-daisy, they weren't supposed to scout that, but SpeCial not going for that main base, instead trying to get a little bit of an edge by blocking out the third base, hoping to turn this into his favor, is misreading the situation, unfortunately.
That's 125 minerals on that engineering bay. That is so wasted right now. Dark is so happy about this. He's like wondering, like, oh gosh darn it, you've really blocked my third hatchery, haven't you? SpeCial is just completely in the dark right now. He needs to find out about this build.
She's like, oh no, you did the thing.
You did that thing I usually would hate, but I don't
know. No, are you real right now?
Yeah, this is it. Like, well, okay, SpeCial is building a bunker though.
He is,
so maybe he does just have the blind feeling that it's something like this, or knows he needs to blindly prepare.
I think the engineering bay not really being emphasized on taking it down, and then no lings at all ever popping up on his natural was kind of like, oh, hold on here. So he does have a bunker on the way, and he did transfer off the factory from the barracks, so he felt this somehow. He saw it with a little bit of something, and that is very, very important, but not enough time to actually grab that Overlord, because that really does just stop this push.
Oh, yeah.
But still, with the bunker, with the tank, he should be able to hold. This could have been much worse, and in fact, he's even getting a medevac to provide some of the counter pressure pretty quickly.
Yeah, it also gives him a bit of micro in case that Cyclone gets in trouble, right? So that's possibly a bit of something too. But the Cyclone here, it's the right choice. It's mobile, you're not sieged up and corrosive fileable by the Ravagers. So the Cyclone pops out, needs to come forwards and get a lock on. If you can lock onto the Overlord, amazing, because then you push back high ground vision, and it's exactly what he's going to get. And now the Ravagers can't hit up the high ground as easily, at least not onto the bunker.
I definitely said tank out of habit. That was my bad. The Cyclones are also going to be nice offensively in those medevacs. So here's what I was thinking of too. But yeah, they're the much safer option, and he does manage to just hold on, let those Vladibos die.
That's fine.
It's fine, it's not so bad. And then the medevac, not only, I mean, he's got the starport unit at all, right? So they can take out the Overlord on the high ground. But again, like also trying to go across the map and do something. I mean, Queens are pretty good early game defense, but they do get locked on and also killed like anything else. So it can be very annoying. Dark did end up having to delay what would have been a third base eventually, but just by a little bit as his link took out the engineering bay. And that's only like 25% done there. Adding a bunch more gases too. You can see him transfer into something even nastier, but SpeCial, there's that push.
Yep, SpeCial going to come across the map. I mean, obviously Dark didn't lose any fighting units across the map, so he still has a lot to defend with. But this is 2 Cyclones. Marines do pretty well in this stage of the game as well, especially supported by a medevac. So this counter could put this third into some real danger. Locks onto it initially. Again, you still got to fight these Roaches and Ravagers, though.
Right, which... yeah, if like half of these units have died on the offensive in a failed push, like it is very, very different. But this might just be enough. The Queens do not have any transfuses yet, and there's still always that option of just staying off of creep, because third base isn't done. He can also just pick up into the medevac. The Cyclones, if they get lock-ons on the hatchery, and he's so focused on this, that could also be a problem, but he is splitting as well as he can. 2 Cyclones looking to take on 2 Ravagers, barely not getting that last one, but the Marines drop on top of it. I think that one will survive, especially because transfuses are prepared, but SpeCial really trying to get some value here. Yeah,
this is actually all thanks to that medevac, right? Because this medevac allowed the threat to go into the main, and great defense by Doc, already sending Zerglings into position. But even better by SpeCial, then go back and see what else he can get on the Cyclones on the third base, and then obviously using the medevac to bring the Marines back in. It's nice to get a couple kills, nice to save the Cyclones too. They can still be used for a couple of harassing purposes as Doc finally pushes this back. SpeCial down 17 workers, 18 workers, but he's got a third CC coming up. I'm not all out of hope for SpeCial right now. What is interesting is maybe the lack of upgrades altogether.
Yeah, no one getting upgrades. We finally have Evolution Chambers on the way for Dark, but yeah, they have upgrades were a little delayed as he was microing perhaps. Didn't have enough gas, actually, I think was what the issue was. But starts up the 1-1. Getting his gas, getting his third CC. It is going into that mid game, but Dark, pointedly not going for a Baneling Nest. He is sticking on Roaches once again. Perhaps just favorable to that last game. He's like, that worked. Let's try something like that again.
Yep, just going to go straight into this here. Does Dark only have 1 Evolution Chamber?
That's he got 2.
He got 2, he's just not saw the cow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, just because he had the money ready to go, right? So, yeah, 1-1 Roaches again. I mean, theoretically, this map should be a little bit harder to make those 1-1 Roaches work, because fair enough, you take that forward third base on Trident, it is forward, right? It does invite the Roach attack a little bit. It's hard to get all the tanks in safe positions. That should be less of an issue here on Eternal Empire. This very safe 3 base. And obviously, I think, as SpeCial realizes what's going on, maybe you get a couple bunkers added this time, and that can make a world of difference as well.
Yeah, the maps are just so different, guys. Like, there's only a 1-second rush difference between the 2 maps we're talking about, but then because you expand forward on Triton, it just reduces that so much, whereas Eternal is actually really a lot about defending. We see a lot of those longer, drawn-out mech games on this map, although this obviously is bio. And I really feel like, yeah, Dark would be remiss to actually go for the 1-1 push. So we have an Infestation Pit, we have a Baneling Nest, we have the future in mind. Because, yeah, I don't think it would have worked out nearly as well.
Yep, he's absolutely right to play a similar style, but change it up, right? And that similar start off of like 1-1 Roach Ravager can sell SpeCial on it being something it isn't, maybe, and then maybe he over-defends something that isn't coming. So to think about it in the overall best of 3, it's actually quite smart by Doc. And as he said, Infestation Pit, Baneling Nest, it's the next couple stages. You go into Hive, you get the Vipers out for help against the siege tanks, and probably after +1 missiles this time we do see that swap to +1 melee I talked a bit about at the start of the first game, and just go into more like a Ling Bane comp and eventually maybe into Ultras or so off that Hive tech too.
Yeah. Really looking deep into the game, but that's kind of where it's headed, you know. We might have SpeCial do a couple of drops, but Dark is not actually doing a push. It is going to be going into the later parts of the game. So Dark grabbing another base. One thing we haven't really talked about, you know, with the early push is that creep spread. He's finally getting more creep tumors. It's actually been like 1 creep tumor per avenue, which has been slow going. Left side's actually looking pretty good, but the right side is getting a little bit scarier. And then when it does come to those drops, the drop phase or, you know, whatever, the lack of creep off to the left and right can be where the drops suddenly do a lot of damage. But that's still a little far off. SpeCial is playing with that bio marine tank composition right now. He is starting to slowly trickle in those Marauders. He wants to do a push, but I'm not sure if this is actually going to go so well. This 2-2 is also delayed by a good like 40 seconds, I want to say.
Forgot his armory for a little while, which is just the difference of him being like ahead on the +2 armor upgrade right now. And again, obviously that creates a timing for you as well. By the time you 2-2 push here, you pretty much have Vipers with energy as Dark, right? If he builds them right away, if that's his goal of the Hive. And there are the first 2 Vipers starting up, so feels pretty tough. His SpeCial just hanging around off the edge of creep, and pretty much as far as he can go. There's a lot of aggressive mid-tier units here from Dark, and this is the best you can do, just trade while there's no Baneling speed.
Yeah, as long as there's no Baneling speed. I mean, more power to you if your micro is good, which SpeCial so far is on top of that. He has a drop to the right where there's, again, no creep spread, so it starts to panic Dark maybe a little bit, but very quick response, and he's still holding strong on the defensive here. I feel like he recognizes this push isn't really something that can actually push into him. You know, it's a push, but not really. And if he just stays smart, he can deal with it, and I think that is absolutely true. The Vipers should be collecting juice right now. And that might actually be a trigger for him if he thinks he can go for it.
Yeah, the Viper's absolutely going to change what SpeCial can do in the game as well, because immediately you just, you know, you shut down your first couple patches of tanks, and it's like, you get swarmed so hard. You lose that splash damage, and right now those tanks are so stacked up as well. Blinding Clouds could be amazing. SpeCial Thinks he's safe just off the edge of creep, but absolutely needing to be careful right now. He's already transitioning, by the way, ready for the Ultras into Liberators. So I like that. SpeCial seems to know where this game is at.
Yeah. I mean, keeping the pressure up when you are doing such a dedicated build here, 8 barracks, now pumping in those Marauders, now finishing the 2-2, and it was a little bit late. You keep up the pressure. Maybe Dark has made those macro mistakes. Maybe he was so panicked about this, he didn't make the Vipers. But I believe he did. We just haven't seen him on the front lines yet. And so far, his drops also have not found, too much damage either. But there is still now something, if the Vipers do not get those amazing blinding clouds, then SpeCial with that 2-2 could maybe take a very good fight. He saw the Vipers. He should be at least trying to split his tanks behind this, but right now splitting the bio as he cleans up the creep spread.
It's actually kind of interesting, right? Because he was able to hold that forward, because right now we see Dark is going to go in for this from the bottom left and the bottom right. Swarming through, the Vipers hit the first Blinding Cloud now. A couple of abducts on the Liberators as well. Takes away a lot of the damage, which he otherwise doesn't have a way to deal with. But all of the Vipers die in this fight, and SpeCial makes a great haul.
That was just a long, drawn-out fight, actually. Like, Dark did not get a pounce on that creep spread as you would want as a Zerg player, but rather long, drawn out. Probably didn't realize how many tanks were quite far back. There was a depth of tanks that make those Vipers just a little bit less impactful, especially if they have to also take out Liberators. So that was a great defense, but SpeCial, he takes a couple of Banelings to the face. Dark was going after those tanks as well, but he's got a lot left over. Medivacs are very dry. That could impact the game, or more so impacting the game. Certainly as this lane run by, SpeCial's already on top of it. He does have a force to be reckoned with on the front lines, and there's no more Banelings. In fact, just Queen Ravager right now.
Well, the Ultras, though, are about to pop, right? And the Ultras are one of the big shutdown points of this, but SpeCial kind of added a bit of something to help with that, being the Liberators. But there's not much to support those Liberators right now, I feel, as the Lings are going to die for this. He's going right here, and we do see one of the Libs going down, and there are the Ultras joining the fight as well, and now Dark is sweeping through this army. SpeCial has to lift up and retreat, and he has no fourth base behind this all.
Yeah, that was fairly all in, really. That was almost cinematic, too, as the rest of the army dies. You're like, oh, can he do it? And then suddenly, not just Ultras, but those Lings forcing the evacuation, right? If it's just Ultras, you micro, you let your tanks and Liberators do something, but those Lings came in, got this around, really shut that down. SpeCial, I mean, he didn't look too happy about seeing that. He has one more push in him, which, again, maybe he doesn't get surrounded. Maybe he has great micro stutter step. He can make something happen here, but Dark might just be running away with this game.
Yeah, SpeCial is, I mean, he's coming forwards again. He has to make something happen because, again, no fourth base, etc. As he gets pushed back here, Dark has a counterattack on the third base as well, so Dark doesn't have to commit through and completely kill this. And right now, there's more Lings than before, a lot of depots going down, and at the same time, the Ultras are back on the fight, and SpeCial just seems to be losing absolutely everywhere on Eternal Empire. GG.
Dark with a very convincing 2-0, finally showing up as the Dark we expected, you know? The quick first game against the non-Korean, and the second game looking actually fairly dominant in the macro game. There was one or two scary points, you know, the counter with the Medivacs was quite good from SpeCial. The push when he didn't have any Banelings left, but that's because he had a bunch of Ultras on the way. So it was a very tough TVZ. We knew that going in. We were just, I think, a lot of people cheering for SpeCial or just hoping that Dark wasn't on his A game. Apparently TVZ, he is on his